Hi guys, Hound's Armory here, and today we're going to talk about where to start in Nerf modding. Now, this is a topic I wish there was a little more information about when I was getting into the hobby, so I figured I'd do a video on it. That being said, let's get started. So, of course, the natural question is, where did I start? And for me, it all started with this hammer shot here. That's a very simple, it's just a paint job, and at the time, I didn't really know Nerf modding was a thing. I was interested in prop building, and so I picked up a Nerf blaster and thought it would be a fun thing to paint, and I sat down with my girlfriend one day and we painted hammer shots. That being said, internally this is bone stock, even has the air restrictor in and the dart posts, and I don't ever use it anymore. It's more of just a point of nostalgia and remembering where I started, and to be honest, just to remind me not to paint my blasters all black, because whereas this looks good, it's a little boring. From there, it got a little more interesting. So after that hammer shot, I went off the rails and built this monstrosity. It is a Raven integration with a long shot stock, a long shot front gun, and a Magnus master key, and it's interesting. It's way heavier than it should be because at the time I didn't know that things like 2 parts epoxies and plastic welders like DevCon existed, so all the integration work is done with epoxy putty, and I didn't do a great job. You can definitely tell in the joint with the master key, I wasn't very patient and didn't sand much at all, so it's very rough and very obvious and very heavy. Also, the internals are hobby grade. I think it's Cyclone wheels with Fang revamps, running on 2S, and the soldering is just kind of abysmal. I did get a voltmeter in. I wasn't that negligent, but I don't love this build anymore. I still have it because it is my first attempt at making something I'd want to field during a war, but I would definitely suggest not going this route for one of your first builds. This is a massive project that I didn't have the patience for at the time, and especially when it came to painting the front end, I could have used a couple more coats of paint in places. It's spotty and the lines are messy, and I'm just overall not very happy with the way it turned out because it was my second project in the hobby. So this is where I would suggest not to start, so let me tell you where to start. So, like me, a lot of people get into Nerf modding for the aesthetics. They want to take these toys they have and personalize them, make them look cooler, and obviously that's where I started with my hammer shots, and I've then gone on to do some very fun, very interesting paint jobs on some other blasters. And I think this is a pretty decent place to start because it makes your blasters personal and recognizable, and overall a lot more fun. These are just 2 examples I happened to pull out, and they're actually a good example of another good piece of advice, which is to start with something small. Don't go out to Target or Walmart or even Goodwill and buy the biggest blaster, most huge battle rifle thing you can find, and try to start with that, because that's going to be a huge project. Like with my Raven build, it just can get overwhelming, and can maybe turn you away from a very fun hobby. That's why I suggest to start with something small. Not to mention, smaller blasters are always going to be cheaper. So pick up a little, this is I think it's the X-Shot Rev 6 maybe? Whatever it is. Pick up something like this. I think it's about 10 bucks at Walmart, and pick up a hammer shot. Something small that you can just play around with, maybe get a good look at the internals and figure out how it works. Give it a good paint job and make it your own. That being said, what if you're more performance interested in the hobby? So obviously a huge component of this hobby is improving the performance of blasters. This is a Strife that I had a more in-depth video on my channel earlier. So if you want more details about this specific build, please go look there. But this is where I'm going to encourage you to not always take the aesthetic route and paint your blasters, because stock paint jobs look good sometimes, especially if you do a little bit of work like I've done here to just touch up, add a little bit more color in it to tie it all together, make it look more cohesive. Stock paint jobs can look great, and they make for a much quicker and much less frustrating project. I think all told, this build maybe took me a day or two, and a lot of that was some troubleshooting because I had a couple bad prints for the inside. And that means, like, if you don't have your own printer, it's not the end of the world. I know a lot of our hobby does involve for 3D printing, but there are companies like Out of Darts and Foam Blast who print flywheel cages, print things like this extended mag release. So you can still get your hands on those parts without diving that heavily into a completely different but related hobby. So as far as performance mods go, this and my Alpha Trooper, which both have their own videos on the channel, are great examples of easy, quick, simple, get to know the hobby builds that don't have to take more than a day. And they're very functional, they look great, and are a great place to start with the hobby. Yeah, let's get into something a little more in depth. So let's be honest, the blaster you have isn't always the blaster you want, and you can fix that. I want to encourage you to look at what you have and see how you can change it. For example, this is the Demolisher that I didn't really love. I love the grip on the Demolisher and some of the aesthetics, but I really didn't like the stock it comes with or the hamp on the bottom. So I cut off the hamp and put this 3D printed rail segment on, and this stock, also 3D printed, but I'm not trying to show you the ways you can fix a blaster to your liking with 3D printing. I want to encourage you to look at what you have, look at what you want, and try to make them match each other. You don't always have to go to some extreme like completely printing and fabricating your own new parts. You can go and add a different stock to it, or heck, even go so far as to do a big integration if you're comfortable with doing that. Again, don't bite off more than you can chew. This is another build I didn't bother to paint because I liked the way it was. So yes, how about we talk about something that's a little more difficult? So a really fun thing we can do with our hobby is take one thing and make it work completely different. This is a simple example of a strong arm that you can swap the cylinder on. I love this mod. To me it makes the strong arm much more usable. I personally prefer the hammer shot for a lot of reasons, but being able to quickly reload the strong arm does make it a little more usable in my mind. And again, this was not a hard mod. I followed Mr. Nathan's tutorial. If I can find it, I'll link it in the description below. It's kind of an old video though. And it's a great spot because you take something that you have and that works. But it wasn't for me at least, this was not my favorite blaster, and still isn't, but is more usable because I was able to do something fun with it. Another example of what to do with this is to add second firing options. This is the current master key for my Strifle Mark II, and it will have its own video and all the other bits of it. But what's important to talk about here is the fact that this is a standalone blaster originally. This is a Shell Strike, the new one. And because I cut off the handle and a couple other things, it now gives me second firing options to shoot almost any ammo type on my primary blaster with very easily swapped between ammo types. It's a great fun little thing to do. Obviously, I really like the idea. It's one of my first mods was to put a master key on a Raven. And so that's a great thing to do. And again, it's just to look at what issues you have, what problems you have with what you have with you, and see how you can solve them. Whether it be make a blaster a little more usable for yourself, or give yourself more options on the field. Before I wrap this video up, I do want to talk about a suggestion for those of you who do 3D print and want to get into this hobby. Now, for those of you who do 3D print but want to get into the Nerfing hobby, there are a lot of good options of where to start. You can start by taking existing blasters like this Demolisher and adding 3D printed parts to it, or you can go all in and start building your own blasters. There are a lot of good makers out there who make a lot of fun and interesting blasters with across the spectrum, from primaries to weird secondaries to sidearms. But I think there's one really good place to start, and it's with the Hyper by Captain Slug. Now, this is his newest blaster that he released a couple weeks ago, and it is a very fun little elastic-powered hammer prime single shot pistol. And one of the main reasons I suggest this to start is the hardware kit that includes everything you need besides the printed parts is $7 or $8, which is really cheap. It comes with the elastics, the barrel, the cylinder, all the screws, all the pins you need, and all you have to do is print out the parts. On top of that, his instructions are amazing, and they always are. From his first caliber into his newest blasters, his instructions are so easy to follow and so great to use. So if you're a 3D printer and you want to get into the hobby, this is a great place to start. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. For those of you who are new to the hobby, I hope this was helpful and informative. And for those of you who have been in the hobby for a while, please let me know what you think I missed, what I might be a little off on. I really want to know your opinion. That being said, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, of course, just ask in the comments. Thank you.